Islamist militant group Boko Haram. The group has waged a terrorist campaign in Nigeria for years, creating widespread fear and calling itself the Nigerian Taliban. Amnesty International condemns the violence by Boko Haram but says the government's heavy-handed reaction could be making matters worse. Details in the CNN report.
A new report released Thursday by Amnesty International is calling on the Nigerian government to ensure the protection of its people living under the threat of attack from the Islamist group Boko Haram. The group, whose name means Western education is sacrilege, is blamed for killing more than 500 people in bombings and suicide attacks this year alone. But the report, titled Nigeria, Trapped in a Cycle of Violence, also faults the Nigerian government's failure to protect the population and says the country's security forces have, quote, perpetrated serious human rights violations in their response. And it goes on to say that the cycle of attacks and counterattacks has been marked by unlawful violence on both sides with devastating consequences for the human rights of its people. Amnesty International says that it's calling on Boko Haram to stop the violence, and it also lays out recommendations for the Nigerian government to ensure that its people are protected from acts of terror by Boko Haram or any non-state actors, and that the rights of its citizens are not violated just in the name of national security. Vladimir Jutir, CNN, Lagos, Nigeria.
A U.S. research institute has said that the country's Latino community of some 23 million voters can have a big say in the November 6th presidential race. Even though it is believed that 70% of the Latinos favor Barack Obama, there are those who share the Republicans' conservative ideas. Meantime, both camps are stepping up their campaigns in Spanish and swing states where undecided voters could make the difference. CFI has the rest of that story.
According to a U.S. research institute, America's Latino community is a sleeping giant. 23 million Latino voters make up 11% of the overall electorate. But Latinos vote less often than other groups. The Serrano family in Los Angeles, however, is very interested in politics. Latinos in America are becoming more aware of their political potential, and both presidential candidates are wooing the Latino vote.
We can be a very powerful group, and we could enact change that will benefit not just Latinos, but I think the whole country as a whole.
According to U.S. opinion polls, 70% of Latino voters say they will vote for Barack Obama, even if many of them are disappointed with his failure to live up to pledges of immigration reform.
Deportations have gone up under the Obama administration, and it's really sad because one of the things he had said was that he was going to fix immigration and he was going to push and actively go after immigration reform, and for whatever reason he hasn't been able to succeed.
Mitt Romney expects to garner 20% of the Latino vote. The Republicans are paying for oppressive policies towards immigrants in several southern states. However, some Latinos share the Republicans' conservative ideals. They are hostile to abortion, gay marriage, and want minimal regulation in the business sector.
I like the Republican philosophy. I like the respect for private life. The government can't solve all problems.
The Democrats and Republican candidates are stepping up their campaigns in Spanish in swing states, where undecided voters could make the difference. There are also a number of non-partisan organizers who are simply encouraging voters to go out and cast their ballots on Election Day. On the 6th of November next, the sleeping Latino giant could wake up.
Sometimes it takes a story of a single person or family to crystallize the mystery of civil war. CNN's Our Damon meets a young victim of a family in Syria. His life changed in one terrible second, and a warning, some of the scenes in this report are difficult to watch.
Other boys his age, 11-year-old Abdurrahman wanted to be a professional soccer player when he grew up. But like so many others in his homeland of Syria, the violence shattered his dream.
كان في طيران حربي وأنا رحت ضربت قذيفة جنب دارنا رحت أشوف إيش فيه ضربت قذيفة تاني.
He doesn't say much beyond that. At times, simply nodding, or smiling sweetly in response, or seemingly lost in his memories. Tears Omar can't control fall silently. The thoughts of what his baby brother endured are too much for the 21-year-old.
Mom woke me up, stand up immediately. What's happening? She said Abdurrahman went out and the airplane is roaming, circulating above, and you need to get him back to the house.
Omar was too late. He found his brother in the hospital.
Once he saw me, he shouted, Omar, shouted with all his strength. When I got closer, I saw his leg and just yelled. I started crying for around 5 hours.
Abdurrahman's leg was amputated in a makeshift field hospital, the basement of a mosque.
After he woke up, we were just saying, I was crying. I couldn't also control myself. He said, please don't cry. If you love me, don't cry.
And that is when Omar made Abdurrahman a promise that he would walk again.
He started to hang on with that idea. So I'm going out, and he kept saying to me, when are we leaving? Yeah, because every time the fighting jet comes, he says, when are we leaving? We should leave.
Omar is now an expert at changing his brother's bandages. He started to save money for a prosthetic, but realized that it was going to take too much time. He began asking around, and a group of visiting Egyptian doctors told him about the Global Medical Relief Fund, a small U.S. NGO dedicated to helping children badly injured in disaster and war zones. Its founder, Alyssa Montanti, was quick to respond. But first, the brothers had to get to Turkey. A car drove them as close to the border as it could. The driver's last words, "You're on your own now." Omar's arms were aching as he carried his brother and their 3 bags across the muddy field. The brothers eventually made their way to Ankara in Turkey. But the boys don't have passports. Their visas to the U.S. were denied, and now they are waiting to see if the State Department will grant them humanitarian parole. For Omar, watching his brother suffering is agonizing.
He had nightmares and sometimes daydreams, bad daydreams. The most important thing that he's learning at this time, I think it's to be aware of everything. I mean, to grow up his mind. I mean, he's not a child anymore.
Well, from that, we go with our second break. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We now take a look at the sports. The face of men's soccer in the United States is undergoing transformation. CNN's George Howe reports how the sports benefited from young players born and bred in Germany.
Mr. Gorbachev, tear down this wall.
This year marks the 25th anniversary of that famous phrase, but the impact of the U.S. military buildup in Germany during the Cold War is still being felt today in an unlikely place, the soccer field. A half-dozen sons of American soldiers stationed in Germany, born to German mothers, have elected to play for the U.S. national soccer team rather than Germany's in the last few years.
My parents met in Heidelberg. My dad was there as a soldier.
For some, this decision relates to their racial identity. Danny Williams and the other 5 players all have African-American fathers.
What does it mean to be biracial in Germany versus being biracial here in the United States?
When I look around in the States, there are a lot of mixed people, and you see so many mixed players, especially like also in this team. Jermaine Jones, Fabian Johnson, they have all the same background than me, so it's normal for us.
In fact, there are almost 10 more biracial German Americans currently playing for the U.S. junior national soccer teams. African Americans were approximately 28% of the 250,000 soldiers in Germany in the mid-'80s.
So when I was young, I always